Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam ala Rasulullah. So the last time we did al-hadath al-asghar or akbar. Yeah, al-hadath al-akbar. So inshallah today ad-dima al-kharija min farj al-mar'a. So the blood that comes out of the women's private. So there's four classifications. Al-hayd is menses itself. Nifas is postpartum. Istihada is basically pseudo menstruation, or sometimes you have extra blood after the 40 days, or extra blood that comes out after the women's weekly cycles, or where sometimes you're not able to differentiate between what sort of blood it is. Damul fasad is accidental bleeding. So we'll go into every single one of these scenarios, inshallah. Okay. Al-hayd. Al-hayd, as we mentioned, it is menses. Sinnuhu tis'a sinin ila khamsin. So what is the bare minimum age for I can keep telling you. What is the bare minimum age when it comes to menses? Obviously, this is a Hanbali position, which we have here is 7. So 7 is the bare minimum age when it comes to your menses. The second, when it comes to max, it would considered 50. So generally, how do you know if what is a sign of like puberty? Is somebody hits when they get their menses? For sure, they've hit their puberty. Muddatuhu is basically, so one is the bare minimum and the maximum. So 7 to 50. Muddatuhu yawm wa layla is basically a day and a night. The Hanafis will call it 3 days. The Malikis will say, as long as the blood the gushes of blood would be considered menses. So let's say from a Hanbali position, 1 day, 1 night is bare minimum, and the max they go is 15 days. But typically, ghalibuhu is 6 or 7 days. So usually it's 6 or 7. Al-ada, the normal or the max, it can go up to 15. Yawm wa layla is basically a day and night, as you see on the screen. Okay. All right, inshallah. The next one, inshallah, ma yatarattabu alay. So what happens when somebody is having their menses? Suqutu salah, the person is not commanded to pray. كنا نحيض في عهد النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم كما قالت Aisha radiallahu anha, she mentions we used to actually have our menses at the time of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. ونؤمر بالصلاة, we were commanded to نؤمر بالصوم بقضاء الصوم. They were commanded to basically, qada is what's like the best translation, when you have to compensate for what you missed, but you are not supposed to do so when it comes to your salah. So any salah that you missed during your menses, you will not pray, but any fasting you missed, you will compensate. So the only ones that actually used to follow the opinion that you have to even compensate the salah was the Khawarij. This is one of their positions, that no, you have to compensate for the salah also. The first one. Suqut, as you mentioned here, suqut ada'u sawm, basically stoppage of the fasting, but you have to compensate the fasting. Thubutul bulugh, once somebody hits they have their monthly cycle, obviously it's affirmation of their puberty. Tahrimul wat is you are not allowed to have intercourse with somebody who's having their menses. So you're allowed to do everything illa an nikah, as the Prophet ﷺ said, except the nikah, referring to basically the action of intercourse itself. So you're allowed to do everything else other than the action of the intercourse. Tahrimu dukhul al-masjid, she is prohibited from entering the masjid. I think I mentioned this last time, is if let's say in a lot of the Western countries, typically you have, it's like an Islamic center. So the prayer hall is what you will not go into. And this is a position of all the madhahib generally, that this is, you'll always find, obviously scholars who will deviate from maybe the four madhahib, but generally the scholars, they will tell you not to enter the prayer area if she's in her menses, her monthly cycle. Tahrimu qira'at al-Quran, this is again one of the Hanbali positions, is that she's not supposed to recite the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the Hanafis and the Hanbalis will allow you to, I think you asked this question last time, they will allow you to touch the mushaf if she or he is wearing a gloves. I mean, she in this case. So what is the minimum duration of her purity? أقلها is 13 days. أكثرها, the max is no had, because sometimes the women may not have a monthly cycle for a very long time. And obviously, this may be a sickness, so there's no had itself. But the least she's going to be pure for is 13 days. غالبها بقية الشهر. يعني let's say she was impure for, let's say, 7 days, and the rest of the month she's going to be pure. I.e., let's say 7 days, the next 22 days or 29 days, she's 23 days or 22 days, she's going to be pure. So whatever is remaining from the month, she's going to be pure. The next one,
for the recitation, if she memorizes then she could do that.
Yeah, typically this is like I said, this is more of the mu'tamad. Other scholars are not so strict on her reciting the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but the mu'tamad itself, they're pretty strict on the reciting of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I'll try to read up if there's other madhahib that actually was lenient on this, or any famous scholar who took this position, if she's allowed to recite the Quran. Dhikr generally is allowed. I know the small dhikr that you make, let's say going somewhere, starting something, all that is. You're talking about continuous recitation. This is where usually the Mu'tamad itself, Imam Ahmad itself took the position that she should not recite the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Touching the Mus'haf itself, لا يمسه إلا المطهرون. We did this last time. Even for a person who is of minor impurity, a man is not supposed to touch the Mus'haf. There are scholars who allowed it, but generally they use the ayah. The ones who allowed it, they will tell you this ayah is referring to the malaika, the angels, are not referring to obviously Bani Adam, the son of Adam itself. So this is typically the positions when it comes to recitation for somebody in menses, and recitation or touching the Mus'haf when somebody is in the state of minor impurity. There is one position in the Shafi'i school that they will tell you if somebody's in like illa abiri sabil, if somebody's passing through the masjid, typically, and especially nowadays, you have to come to the masjid. You don't really pass through. I think in Egypt it's definitely possible. I've seen you can walk through the masjid, but